Two done. Yeah, that's one of the two. Yeah, slightly botched. No, a hair's cut. That's right. That's exactly right. Someone say something? Well, we will go ahead and get started. I don't hear any other voices in the hallway anyway. We're on the last week of the unit. Why would God want us to sing? Week 7, we did social health, if you will, kind of like sense of belonging, loneliness, collective health. Last week, week 8, we did mental health, what's going on cognitively, and then this week we're doing physical health. If you have any questions, I neglected to mention this last week, but any questions, just text at InMacMusic to 81010 just one time, and then fire off your question to me. As we've learned, I may or may not get that, and so you may need to remind me when it comes in. Okay, last couple weeks. Here are the summary statements from 7 and 8. God wants us to sing together because it spreads joy throughout self, congregation, and community, and engages mind, body, spirit, forming identity, purpose, and inner calm. Already, that's a pretty good argument for why God would want us to sing, but turns out there's actually physical benefits as well, not just how we think or how we think about other people, but what we think of ourselves as well, and what happens with us biologically. Now, before I get too deep into the next few slides, there's a disclaimer that the things that I'm going to say are going to have some pretty interesting statements. Statements that are backed by empirical research and replicable studies. But it's going to sound kind of like, eat this baby carrot and now you've got night vision. Okay? So, while these are true in lab studies, right, you can't just generalize it to the entire human condition. And so keep that in mind. That for every one of these things that you're going to say, yeah, that's true, I get that. You're also going to be someone else is going to be in the room and say, yeah, I don't get that at all, right? And so there's a wide spectrum of responses. And so I mentioned that because for some reason, when we get down to physical health, this is kind of an important thing for some people. And it's like, oh, well, I'll just sing more, and then all of my hopes and dreams will come true. And like, no, that's not entirely accurate. Okay, disclaimer over. Moving on. We're going to start here. Historically, shocker, I know, singing was taught for clear speech and delivery. This was the physical health part. We are going to teach you to stand up. We're going to teach you to stand up straight. We're going to have you look at the person you're speaking to, and you're going to raise your chin slightly, shoulders back, right? And why? Because it's about breathing and projection and enunciation. Later on in medieval schools, monasteries first, and then later on to the cathedral schools, and then later medieval universities, they adopted this, where students would stand in front of their peers and recite entire poems, entire pieces of literature, great masterworks, really, all in Latin, because that was the language of academia. But they wouldn't have any idea what it meant, because that wasn't the point. The point wasn't to memorize the text for the sake of the text. The purpose was to be able to stand confidently, be able to articulate your point, and to learn what to say, so then later when you have your own creative ideas and your own creative thought, that you can articulate those ideas about posture and presence. Well, they were onto something. This section of the spine, the thoracic area attached to the rib cage, by singing, you develop what is known as thoracic mobility. That is where your spine is able to kind of move and twist and turn, and it holds and supports your neck, alleviates your back pain. So when you're standing up straight, nice and tall, or if you're sitting up straight, nice and tall, things like neck, upper back tension goes away. Things like lower. We know this about posture, right? We know this. What you may not know is singing helps with this. It helps by increasing thoracic mobility, which reduces neck and lower injury risk, right? If you're singing properly, you're up straight. If you're singing enough and you're singing consistently enough, you naturally form a better posture, right? By improving your posture, your rib cage can expand the way it's designed, so you can breathe deeper. By breathing deeper, you get more oxygen. By getting more oxygen, your body receives more nutrients to the organs that it needs, and so you have greater stamina because the organs can do what they're supposed to do, and because of that, you have less fatigue. Who knew? Okay. Don't move your posture. But take in a deep breath as you can through the mouth and hold it just for a few seconds. Let it out. Do that again. Feel the muscles around your torso, your stomach. Concentrate on what your shoulders are doing. Take a breath again, deep in. Hold it and out. Now humor me for a little bit. Sit closer to the front of your chair just a bit so your back is coming off of it. I'll turn to the side so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Feet are flat on the floor, about shoulders width apart, but you're not pushing down any, nice and relaxed. Okay, stacking that spine one on top of the other, rolling the shoulders back, chin slightly elevated. This time when you take a breath, I want you to stick your tongue out just a little bit. Like this. It's going to look silly, but I promise no one's looking except everyone, okay? So we're going to take a deep breath in, okay? And you should feel it here, and you should not feel it here, okay? Here we go, ready? In. Hold it. Now release it. Can you feel it more in your back? Can you feel it more in the sides, here, and not up here? Okay, that's because your rib cage is doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's allowing the muscles around the lungs to allow the lungs to expand. You just got almost twice as much oxygen in that one breath as you did for the last half hour. Isn't that incredible? It's a lie. Okay? If you do that enough, that is what we're not going to do that here tonight. Usually what I would do with my bands and choirs is that we're going to get to the point of hyperventilation and we see stars and it's fun. Because your body is so full of oxygen, your nervous system has no idea what to do with it, and so your nerve endings flash and fire. You ever experience this? Sometimes when you're really exercising hard, you're huffing and puffing, and you're seeing those little white, sometimes black stars. It's because your body is literally on fire. It's the oxygen that is coming off within your system, and it's burning it. Your lungs are doing what they should be doing. We'll get to the effect of that here in a second. But before we get down into our systems, we're going to start up here. Endocrine system. Your hormones. We've already been over some of this with decreased cortisol and increased endorphins, but singing also increases your dopamine. It's a dopamine hit. You feel good, which is also sometimes linked to motivation and focus. Also, note this, inner resolve and a sense of purpose. Isn't that interesting? That's kind of something on somewhat newer research. Serotonin, regulating your mood. Encouraging calmness and reasonableness. Let your reasonableness be known. Increased oxytocin. We've been over that a bit. Increased IgA. I have what this means later. It's like a word about as long as this screen. But this is your first responder, if you will, in mucus type of surfaces. Your mouth, your nose, inside your gut. And what this antigen does is capture germs and it doesn't allow it to attach itself. It prevents infection before infection starts. And singing improves that, interestingly enough. So all those times where you have maybe singing together as the poster child for things like COVID, they were wrong. They were wrong. Respiratory system. We're going to go down to breathing now. Singing trains, controlled exhalation. We already knew this. Minute ventilation is improved. That is how much air you move in a minute, and so is tidal volume, the amount of air that you take in a breath, and you have just experienced that, right? The amount of air that you took in that one breath was probably more substantial than what your normal breathing pattern is. If you breathe like that constantly and constantly regulating your breath in such a way where you can have projection and long phrases and holding long notes. Then that translates into more a permanent change into how your lungs and your rib cage, your thoracic region functions. Breathing exercises are used in COPD patients. In fact, there's an entire program out there for that. Alleviating asthma and COVID symptoms. Sometimes you'll see breathing exercises prescribed as an effect to reduce the likelihood of asthmatic onset. Respiratory infections reduced partly because of the increase of antigens. Diaphragm and intercostal muscles, those are the ones that are around your thoracic region. Helps the lungs do what they're supposed to do. The one I put up here helps clear the lungs because we're always used to hearing some coughing, right? Your intercostal muscles are the things that help your muscles clear the lungs. Get that out. Cardiovascularly, your ticker does better. This one's interesting. So I mentioned this about breathing, right? And taking in all this oxygen, and your body doesn't know what to do with it, okay? Because you've been running, or you're active. Okay, singing for an hour in lab studies, and this goes back decades, been replicated time and time again. Singing for 60 minutes is about the same as walking for roughly 3 miles an hour for 30 minutes. Comes out to about 4 to 6 kilometers per hour, if you're really interested. So 2.5 to 3.7 miles per hour, whatever that turns out to be, something like that. Sing for an hour, you've burned 120, 150 calories. Isn't that interesting? It's kind of a neat thought, right? I don't see anybody leaving a singing class drenched in sweat. It's a different system, right? As you would probably anyone in here would know, a calorie is not necessarily the same, right? But I find this to be very interesting. Singing for an hour is legitimate exercise, particularly for a population who may not be able to get out and exercise physically, right? Okay, deep, regular breathing. When I say regular in this bullet point, I'm not talking about like something that is timed, like a metronome. I'm talking about deep breathing that happens regularly. It is common. It's not something that's you're only breathing properly while you are singing. It is something that you have trained over years of participation in music because you have learned to sing with a deep breath. We're talking about improving circulation, really vascular elasticity. Did I put that on? Yeah, vascular elasticity. Make sure all your tubes squishy, right? When your heart pulses, there's some give and take in there. It's not quite so hard on things like your blood pressure. Those kinds of things reduce risk of stroke or heart disease. Now you see what I mean about the baby carrot, right? Singing for an hour is not going to reduce your risk of heart disease. Singing for an hour for decades probably will. Okay? So why would God want us to sing regularly and speak to one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs? Because it's good for your heart. Okay, we're going to go back to the nervous system. Except instead of hormones, we're going to go to regions of the brain. The limbic system is like where emotions are processed. We have a reduction of fear and anxiety, a reduction of cortisol in the brain specifically, a reduction of adrenaline. This awareness of breathing, awareness of your heartbeat, awareness of your emotion. It's a matter of self-awareness, and it's not like, I think my pulse is now 75. It's not. That's not what we're getting at. It is, you are aware that I am now kind of in a different state of relaxation. Like you maybe had a hard day, and you're coming here and you sing, and now you are aware of, you know what, maybe it wasn't so bad after all. It's not that you are aware that your breathing has changed or your heart rate has changed, but you are aware of the effects of those physiological effects. Singing activates the motor cortex, things like muscular movement. Simultaneously, the auditory cortex, who would guess that? And then the cerebellum and basal ganglia, that's like fine-tuning timing, right? This is like Flappy Birds, and rhythm and coordination, right? The things that make you do the things at exactly the right time, kind of like saying the right word at the right time, because that's what everyone else is doing. Right? Motor cortex, these are going to control like your voice. This should come to no shock to anybody that this is activated, because that's what has to be activated in order for you to sing. Right? But what you may not know is that those are on different sides of the brain. And so it helps activate the entire brain. Singing is a whole brain event. And so you get things like neuroplasticity, and it improves memory as well. Because of the regions of the brain that do become activated. That bottom point is important, I think. Singing promotes neural growth and repair. Very recent research, just within the last year, this was kind of a thought, but recent research, very recent, has come out and said, yeah, in fact, nothing promotes neural growth better than singing compared to anything else that has been studied so far. While we're here, let's talk about the vagus nerve. What is this? This is the largest nerve you've got. It goes from your brainstem through the neck, heart, lungs, down into your gut. Ever get a gut feeling about something? That's your vagus nerve. Part of the parasympathetic system, or put up here, rest and digest. We've been over that a little bit. This is that system that activates when you're feeling that all things are okay. It's opposite of the sympathetic, which is fight or flight. Okay, the thing that kind of you're walking down some sort of like creepy alley at night, and you're like, and you're on the lookout, right? That's your sympathetic system that's activated, but the parasympathetic system is activated when the vagus nerve gets activated by, of all things, controlled breathing and vibration. Rhythmic breathing communicates, I am safe. Everything is okay. Which is what happens when you sing. Phonation, a very interesting term that I saw, so I thought I'd put it up there. It means to sing, to talk, to speak, right? To create sound directly stimulates the vagal branches, the things that extend out into your body. In the larynx, musical synchrony, we went over that a little bit. That's when everyone is biologically together, right? Heart rate, et cetera, while we're singing. This amplifies these feelings of things like calmness and safety. And now we have the effect. Why do we care? Because your heart rate slows down, heart rate variability will increase, your blood pressure decreases, inflammation reduces, and you are now in a state of parasympathetic dominance. Relaxation, digestion, healing. So naturally, we're going to go to the immune system. Singing increases this antigen, primary defense mechanism for the upper respiratory tract. That's kind of a restatement of where we were before, so that we can get down to here. A single hour of group singing together. Look at this. We're going to have improved cytokine profile. What is cytokines? Those are the messengers for white blood cells. It tells them where you go, where they need to go, and what they need to do in your body. I didn't specifically put this up here, but a lot of cancer research is exploring this right now. A lot of cancer research is exploring this, where you have patients that are involved in singing are finding that they are responding better to cancer treatment. And it's because of this reason.
Would they have to sing themselves or be in the presence of singing?
Singing themselves is what the articles are about. Being in the presence of singing does help, but not nearly this well. Balancing your immune response so that your body will attack germs and not its own self. Again, baby carrot, right? Put it in perspective. It's just what some articles are saying. And I feel like the disclaimer needs to be said again. We cannot know. We are not God. We do not know how He exactly designed us, but we have little windows that we can see into, right? And so this is something that science and has discovered. So take that for the weight that it has, and not necessarily as absolute truth. What we do know is that singing reduces cortisol, a few other things like inflammation, so that your body has the availability to address other things, like addressing inflammation. Is a big thing that's being tested. That was quick, wasn't it? This is a summary of what we went over this week. There is no system that you're going to read in a biology textbook that is unaffected by singing. It's incredible. By singing regularly, singing for a while, and what I mean a while, I mean years of participation, particularly in church. I think we've been hinting at that, right? But week after week after week. Okay. We're going to go back to our breathing exercises. Okay. Sitting up front at the front of your chair. Okay. I want to give you 4 counts, kind of like a metronome. We're going to breathe in all 4 of those counts. When you're breathing in, I want you to think about your lungs kind of like an empty pitcher, and you're going to pour water into that pitcher where you're filling your lungs from the very bottom all the way up. See, oftentimes when we breathe in from the top down. And we think about this, right? This kind of feeling. Okay? Think about this nice open throat, relax the back of the tongue, fill in from the bottom, or go kind of feel. Okay? Nice and deep. You may want to even drop the jaw, drop out the tongue a little bit if you're comfortable doing that, because you're going to get a better breath if you do. We're going to breathe in for 4 counts. Completely fill yourself up over those 4 counts, and we're going to hold it for 6, and then we're going to breathe out again for another 4. Okay? Here we go. Ready? And in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Feel your muscles, where that tension is at. 6, and release over 4. 1, 2, half empty. 3, 4. Relax. Breathe normally. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it 3 times total. Okay, in for 4, ready? And in, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold. Out for 4, 1, 2, half, 3, 4, relax. Breathe normally. And again, ready? And in, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold for 6. And out for 4, 1, 2, 3, all the way to the end, and relax. Okay, this time we're only going to breathe in for 3 counts, but now we're going to hold for 8. And then we're going to release for 3. 3, 8, 3. Okay? Ready? And in for 3. 1, 2, 3. Hold for 8. Out for 3. And 1, 2, 3. Release. This time in for 2. We're still going to hold for 8, but out for 4. Okay, so 2, 8, 4. Okay, so you're going to take half your breath for each second that we're breathing. Okay, ready? And in, 2, hold. Out for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Relax. This time in for 1, hold for 10. Out for 4. So you're going to completely fill your lungs from the bottom to the up in one count. Hold for 10. Ready? And in, hold. Out for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Relax. How do you feel? If you don't feel a little sleepy, you're doing it wrong. Okay? You should feel like this has got to stop, right? Okay? What you're feeling is your parasympathetic system that has been activated. Alrighty? Everybody knows, I'm sure, Jesus loves me. Okay? We're going to take that same type of breath, but for 2 counts. And in one long breath, we're going to sing the song as long as we can. Okay? When you run out of air, just stop singing. Okay? Like one guy in the back, I will cut you off before that happens, I promise. Okay, we're not going to embarrass anybody. Okay? So 2 counts in, and then I'll start with you. Okay, I'll lead it. Okay? Ready? And in. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. So are you surprised at how far you went? Isn't that incredible? You took a total of about, 6 to 8 breaths properly, and now instead of singing like 2 measures, you went and sung like 12 or 16, right? It's because that you forced your lungs to work the way they were designed. Can you imagine what you could do if you were out working every day in the yard? If you were having to engage in physical labor, like work the farm, work your fields, build your houses, and then you had to go home, and then you're doing all the housework, and you're training up a child in the way they should go, and you're yelling at them to clean their room again, right? You understand now things like stamina, right? It's just a very quick example, but it gets the point across. Okay. Here's where we are with the unit. Why would God want us to sing? Because it spreads joy of self-congregation community, because it engages mind, body, soul for identity, purpose, and inner calm, and because it regulates stress, strengthens the heart, and promotes a healthy quality of life. Here's where we are so far within the 12-week class. For Unit 3, which is what we just finished, God designed singing in part for restoration. Strengthens the body he created while lifting the spirit he renewed. Okay. Next week, we're going to be looking at our songs. We're going to start applying some of these things. We're not necessarily going to be singing them, but we're going to break these things down. And so we're going to look at a song, a couple of them, that are, what I'll say, old songs. Maybe a little worn out, frayed on the edges, right? The ones that you get up and you see that, you're like, right? Because they have value. And I want you to see why they have value. And songs that at one time were statements and confessions and proclamations of faith, and now they're just kind of what we sing before we get onto the next part of our life, right? We're going to look at some of those things for that reason, kind of maybe with renewed eyes, now that you have an appreciation on where music came from and why we do it. Week 11, I think I have that as my next slide. Yeah, week 11, that's the week following. 2 weeks, question and answer. I want to answer all of the questions that you presented to me at the beginning of class in week 1. And then I'll go over all of the little tiny questions that I had answered individually by those people who had been texting me, all of those questions. And so everyone will have the benefit of seeing everybody's question. I am not going to name names. But if you have a question that you would like answered in week 11 in 2 weeks, text it to me, and I will make sure that it gets in there. Week 12 is singing, and we're going to join the recharge class for that final week. For a full practical application, and you will have the full understanding of what it is we are doing and why, and that will be fantastic. These slides will become available at some point. There's 200 and something of them, along with, just so you are aware, nobody cares. No, my bibliography. I added that in the back, so if you want to know any of the resources, it goes on for some 14 or 15 slides of all the resources there, so. Gives you a little bit of light reading for all of that. Okay, questions for tonight?
Scott, when you were going through the start of this lesson, talking about the benefits of reducing stress and stuff, my thoughts went to the Titanic.
Yeah. Band plays on deck. I can't remember what they played. Near my God to thee. Yeah. Widespread singing was recorded by the survivors. Widespread singing around within and outside of the ship. There's a lot of things about singing that brings a group together, right? In that way.
You and I discussed this briefly. Could you expound on that, like with the stadium and the crowd, the wake and all that?
Nope. What were you talking about?
So I asked Scott after class a couple weeks ago, I said, singing as a group does the thing. Is that true of a giant stadium full of Eagles fans? And he said yes. And I was like, what about the wave? He said, yes. And like we started just like branching out of the things that people do as a group.
As a group.
And
Yes.
it all, which is not the right term, but it's interconnected.
It's interconnectedness. You're talking about the synchrony. The idea is like, the example was like an athletic event. Eagles as in like the Philadelphia Eagles, not like the band, right? And although I suppose that probably happened too. You had the wave, right? You have like this group that's kind of the way, or most recently, Oklahoma State has made the news, right, with their student section. The guys waving the shirts, right, and then all of a sudden other guys come in and wave the shirt, and then you have the banana conga line, right? Those kinds of things Yeah, like those guys who are involved in that are going to have a feeling of, so I'll call it brotherhood within that group. And in fact, if you noticed, the first week they had like the one guy who was waving his shirt, and then all of a sudden it was everybody. And then the following week, what happened? The same thing. There was a couple of, it didn't start with just one guy. There were a couple of guys, and it was the same ones that went from before. But it was not the same ones who started it. It was different guys who felt a connection there, right? Because they wanted to do it again. Now, they also may have been like, that's funny, right? But the point is that they made an effort to go to take an experience that happened a week prior and replicate it the week after, right? That's the important part, because that's what we want to replicate here in the church, right? We want to have a visitor who has no experience coming in, make them feel warm, welcome, and a sense of belonging so that they want to come back. And we can do that if we are actively engaged in singing, in part, right? That's not the only thing that we need and can do. But other things like physical things like the wave, that does create some sort of sense of bonding, social bonding, and it is a large social level, right? That happens. How many times have we heard, just within the last year, affirming the faith is coming up. You've got to come listen to the why. It blows through. It's amazing. It's great. It's incredible, right? And I'm sure that it is. But when you leave there, what do you feel? Right? It's an incredible sensation. I myself have never been to affirming the faith, but I've attended congregations of massive size, and you have a similar feel where it's just like these are so many voices, right? And it's almost overwhelming. It's kind of like taking the small rural congregation and then you throw them into the mix of a large congregation. Even just a couple hundred, right, has the same effect. Or you take a group to maybe a nursing home and you sing for them. And they think, oh, this was so wonderful and amazing. And we're like, thanks, right? Because we didn't feel that, because we didn't get the dopamine hit that they did, right? So it's all subjective. But yes, engaging in the same physical things. A few weeks back, we talked about marching, right? Military, and experiencing the same thing there. Same stuff. All right, I've rambled enough. Anything else? Cool. Thank you. Have a great night, guys. We'll see you next week. They are online, the North Mac YouTube.